friends, and welcome to the School Librarian Learning Network podcast. I'm Steve Tatro, also known as Dr. T Loves Books, and I love talking about all things related to school libraries. This week's episode is a little different. A few years ago, I was lucky enough to host Season 2 of School Library Connection's One Lesson at a Time podcast. I had a great time doing those episodes, where I got to speak with amazing guests sharing wonderful lessons. If you've heard One Lesson at a Time, the format of the usual SLLN episode probably sounds pretty familiar. Heck, some of the guests and their lessons probably sound familiar too. Since SLC is now open to the public, I thought y'all might enjoy hearing some One Lesson at a Time throwback episodes. What you're going to hear here is a rougher version of the episodes, as One Lesson at a Time had a paid support staff making things sound remarkable, but the guests and their lessons are remarkable on their own. I hope you enjoy this throwback episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. As always, the opinions and ideas shared in this podcast by myself and my guests are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. And because school librarians always strive to be good digital citizens, I cite sources when using material that is not my own. Without further ado, let's get to this week's episode. Hey everybody, we're back, and I am excited to be able to talk to Barbara Johnson today. She has got such an incredible idea for this project that she does with her students. I am so excited to hear more about it because it just blew my mind when I heard about it. So Barbara, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, hi, Steve. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and share our ideas. So I'm Barbara Johnson. I am an elementary school librarian in Colchester, Connecticut. I teach at an intermediate school. That's grades 3, 4, and 5. And I am the past president of the Connecticut Association of School Librarians.
Outstanding. So how did you end up in school librarianship in the first place?
So interesting story. My background is elementary ed. I taught grade 3 for a very long time. I went to Rhode Island College for my undergrad, which is actually in mathematics. But it's mathematics because way back when I was a girl, they didn't have computer science classes. So many of my classes were in coding and computer programming, hardware, software, but they classified them as mathematics courses. So my background is educational technology, but I have a mathematics degree, a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics. I taught third grade for a very long time. I taught full day kindergarten. And then I answered a little tiny ad in Colchester looking for a technology specialist, just because I was looking to connect more with technology in the classroom. And the model in Colchester is that every full-time librarian is paired with a technology specialist. So I taught at the K2 school, co-teaching with their school librarian. And we both needed to go back and get our master's degrees. So we decided to go back to school together. We found a program at Mansfield University. It was completely online, Mansfield, Pennsylvania. And not being of the librarian world, I took all of these amazing classes with names like Sarah Kelly Johns and Joyce Valenza, people I didn't even know the quality of class and education I was getting. So we finished our master's degree in 2013. The librarian where I am now working retired, and the superintendent called and said, time to put your librarian pants on and be a librarian. And so I was placed in the intermediate school and have been working there ever since, about 10 years.
That's awesome. Wow. That's such an interesting trajectory there. And it really helps me sort of situate in my mind how you came to Digital Learning Day. So because I'm seeing now that there's some background here.
Yeah, that's definitely my comfort level. Most librarians that I've talked to or have collaborated with, they come to it through the literary world, right? They're ELA teachers, they're classroom teachers with this amazing love of reading and authors. And my personal goal is to enhance that piece of my life, my literature piece and my author piece, because I'm very comfortable with the technology piece. So I make a good pair with librarians who are uncomfortable with technology.
That's awesome. That's a great chance to collaborate too and really build up some connections and different lessons that you might be able to add those elements that maybe just were getting missed before. That's really neat.
Absolutely.
So Digital Learning Day, how did you arrive at the idea for making this happen?
So, one of the things that my teaching friends and collaborators know about me is I like jump on things right away. I'm like, we can do this. I'm very excited. I don't always think the minutia, the small points through. I'm kind of like that. I think it's a north on the decision-making compass, right? I'm like, let's just go for it, right? Somebody else will figure out the details. So way back in like 2016, 2017, I heard about this thing called student-led conferences. And I said to myself, that's an amazing opportunity for students to like lead these professional learning conferences, except that's not what they really meant, was it? What they were really talking about is student-led parent-teacher conferences. And I had a bigger picture in my mind of like kids running one of the PD conferences that I was going to. So instead of admitting that I might have misinterpreted the situation, we plowed forward in Colchester. I was like, you know what? There's this digital learning day thing. Let's have kids create a workshop for families and other librarians and use Colchester as an example how kids could really initiate and lead their own learning. So we created these lessons all through January and February that would allow kids to explore, experiment, and explain different digital tools, some of my finding, some of their finding. And then we designed this big ed camp in the evening where the community could come in and learn from the kids.
That is so awesome. When we get that chance to put the kids in control of some of their learning, it is so powerful for them. And it's a really good reminder, I think, for the adults too, to be like, yeah, the kids need to be stakeholders in what's going on here.
Absolutely. And we have, closed doors where we have some parent volunteers and we had some people in the community knowing what was really going on in classrooms. But when it comes to budget time in Colchester, we vote on an education budget and we were asking for more and more technology and people didn't really understand how it was being utilized in classrooms and in schools. And we felt this was an opportunity to invite the whole community in, whether you had a kid in the Colchester school system or not, to see what was going on. And we held workshops for people who had these new devices. Remember 2015, people were still getting new devices. And they could work through, they could show you how to set up your iCloud. They could get you, it was an amazing, and it still is an amazing, diverse group of activities that learners of all ages and all levels can come and enjoy.
That's awesome. Wow. I love that the community is able to take advantage of learning from the kids, and the kids aren't only taking part in learning, they are literally leading, like they are the experts in this space.
Absolutely.
Wow. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
That's what we wanted to give them the experience. Like many times, some of our students who were very tech savvy may not have had the opportunity to be that expert, maybe in the reading classroom or in their math classroom, but they really, took the opportunity to shine and become the expert in the room in a situation like this.
That is awesome. Wow. And I can just imagine too, because I know in my school, there's those kids that maybe aren't the academically oriented students or the sports oriented students. And they kind of just have that, like they kind of fall through the cracks sometimes. And I could see this being a real opportunity for them to show what they can do and feel that pride of knowing that they can do something that maybe other people can't, that they can help people learn about this thing that they're interested in or into.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had gaming going on and the robotics teams and virtual chess teams and people building their own robots. We had Rubik's Cubes teams and apps that they were using for both learning and for recreation and nature, like Leaf Snap and all of these apps that hadn't even really come across my desk yet. The students were able to step up and say, Mrs. Johnson, I think this would be really great for school. And we empowered them. We're like, write it up, make me a poster, teach a session, record a video. And they came through and they really became the stars of the night.
And these are third, fourth, and fifth graders?
So my students are third, fourth, and fifth graders, but we did open it up because our librarians meet as a K-12 vertical team. That's our PLC. And we meet with the technology specialists in each building. We were able to organize a K-12 event. So our digital learning nights incorporate anywhere from pre-K students talking about unplugged coding activities to the AP computer science students talking about how they're designing the next apps that are going to be used. I mean, it's such a broad spectrum that everyone was able to be included, and my kids could learn about what was going on at the next level. And then the kids at the high school could really see how even the youngest of students in Colchester were already accessing and utilizing these technology skills.
And I imagine that also gives the students a chance to connect in ways with older and younger students that they might not otherwise have the opportunity, which that must build an amazing community in your district.
It does. And it came on with some new mentorship programs came, as well as opportunities outside, the Colchester school system. We had some businesses, some tech businesses come in and look at and then discover, we could have an internship, or we could come into your school and mentor some kids, around Hour of Code, and so it was able to build partnerships not only within our school system, but within the learning community of Colchester itself.
And this all from a misunderstanding of a phrase. I love it. I love it.
We never tell anybody that. We just move forward. Move forward with it.
Absolutely.
What's the worst that could happen? That's what I say.
Oh, I'm there with you. I'm all about leap first and figure out where to look later.
Absolutely.
So this program is just amazing. It's blowing my mind how many ways it pulls different elements together from all across your grades and your community, and I'm sure also your subject areas are probably getting engaged with this. Are
Absolutely.
there collaborations with the subject areas?
Yeah, so our math department came in with some of the apps and websites that they were using to support math learners and how to scaffold their math program. Our language department would come in because they were using some technology pieces to make language learners more independent. Prior to COVID, they would talk into their computer and the computer would give them feedback. Computer science would come in with some of their AI stuff that they were doing and programming. And our social studies departments always collaborate with us on research. And so we would always bring it back to what we would be doing in the library as far as research and presentations. I use air quotes around the word presentations because many times that's thought of when you hear you're going to make a presentation, well, you're going to go to PowerPoint or slides, right? Mm-hmm. And so we like to involve the arts. And so music became part of it and visual arts. And our PE teachers talked about how they're using technology to assess skills. And so it becomes this really cross-curricular K-12 amazing sharing event that happened to also help get the word out of how we were utilizing these tools.
Wow. I mean, we talk oftentimes about how school libraries can be the heart of the school and school librarians can be leaders, but you are literally leading the entire district with this project that you've put together. I love this. I love this so much.
Thank you.
So maybe we can dig into the specifics a little bit. So what's your first step when you go to get the program in place?
Yeah, so actually next week, the beginning of January, middle of January, we start with a digital learning menu. Now, prior to COVID, we were putting these together ourselves, just with some different places students could go to explore activities. And then there are certain things we have in the library, some robots that we use, Hour of Code things kind of left over from December. We've got the maker space that we have, our 3D printer. So we were using Tinkercad, but we were using some programs in math, music, science. And so we would bring those in and set up a learning menu. I'll be honest, with COVID, Shannon Miller has been putting out some amazing choice boards. And so we have utilized, she does put them out on her blog. She does give you use to and the link to be able to edit them, to customize them for your school and grade level. So we've been kind of piggybacking our learning menu and bolstering it with some of the things that she offers. In addition, Google Computer Science CS First has some free resources for you, as well as some of their digital elements for integrating music and art. We've brought in some things from used to be Google Expeditions, but now with the Wayside, we've got Expeditions Pro, and there's a few others out there making virtual reality a little more accessible to younger students. So we put this big learning menu together mid-January, and then we put it out as an assignment to just let kids play. The challenging part is we put it out with very little instruction. The kids need to use these links, go to publishers' websites, read the instructions, figure stuff out, which can be time consuming and challenging. I come at it from the library world as this is how I teach kids to create an annotated bibliography. So here's library stuff. So not only do they have to go to a publisher's website, they have to learn how to create a citation. We use the citation tool, Cite This For Me, always talking about how to ethically and responsibly use information. And then they create an annotation teaching or telling someone what this website is all about and how they see this tool connecting to learning. So I get my way and a piece of paper to grade with an annotated bibliography, and the kids think they're really just having fun. So that takes about the 2 weeks in January.
How often do you see the kids?
We're a special, so we're going to see them once a week for 45 minutes. So that would be about 2 class periods, about a 90-minute block, right? If you're working with older kids and you've got a 90-minute block, they could discover usually 2 or 3 tools. They can get them cited. They can figure them out. They're kids. They're geniuses now coming out of COVID, right? So they're very comfortable in kind of exploring. Where we need to kind of support them is we're seeing, the stamina for I can't figure it out or I can't find it. We're encouraging, we may be, talking about the About Us page or go watch a YouTube video, see if you can find their YouTube channel, not giving them the answer, but maybe just guiding them, especially with my 3rd and 4th graders. They just need a little more guidance. And the expectation might be a 3rd grader to figure out 1 tool in this entire time. A 4th grader might figure out 2 tools. And my 5th graders, the expectation is that they figure out 3 tools, annotate, and cite all 3 tools.
Nice. Wow, that's very ambitious. I like that.
Well, set the bar high.
Yeah. And I love, too, that you're thinking about scaling for, grade appropriateness or grade relevance for those particular kids. So that's great because I can see that working its way up through the high school, too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we let the kids choose from their own interest levels. We just schedule, we try and scaffold the amount of the activity for age appropriateness.
So the kids have their learning choice board. They make some selections. And so after they've annotated and said, here's what I've learned about these, what's step 2?
So we start to talk to them and we prepare a flyer for the end goal, right? This digital learning night. We get them excited. PTO donates money for pizza. So we're going to feed them dinner, which is the draw.
Now,
free pizza.
Up to that point, they don't know that there's going to be the digital learning day?
No, they just think this is kind of like exploring, lots of play, and they got to learn how to cite something. So that's the library piece.
I love it. And so then there's like, surprise, you're actually going to be able to do something with this.
Yeah, so now you get to take one of your selections. If you don't like the one you picked, we have 3 weeks. But if you want to be the teacher, not every kid is comfortable getting up in front. Sure. They might make a poster. Then you might use Canva to create just some instructions. They might make a video. For the last 2 years, we were unable to get together as an in-person group. And so much of that was done through Screencastify or Canva. And then we put together, again, a virtual choice board. But this time it was the links to where kids could learn from each other there. And so they could watch their own student or their own child or their classmate and then go and do the thing that they wanted to do. In person, about the first week of February, we give them an opportunity to create a presentation. It could be like Mrs. Johnson, get up in front of a small class and do your thing, teach kids and kind of monitor the room. It could be a video. They get to choose. That's the beauty of it, is the people who want to stand up and talk have the opportunity to stand up and talk. So we just work through different parts of a lesson plan, right? And so what goals do you want to have with your students? What materials are you going to need? Do we need to get any other supplies in the room? Do we need technology in the room? And they create this little lesson plan for me that then gets distributed, and they create a little sign to advertise for themselves that gets stuck at the outside the door of the window.
This lesson just gets better and better. I love that the students are getting to see, here is what teachers have to do.
Yeah.
I can imagine that that's really giving them a better feel for what's going on in the classroom. Like, as students, being able to say, oh, my teacher doesn't just stay here overnight and pop out of a closet ready to go. Like, they've got to actually put things together. And now I'm seeing how hard that is.
Right. And then asking like, oh, what do you want your learners to come away with? Is there a question you're going to ask them at the end to make sure that they understood? Right. So they're creating little exit tickets for each other or quiz. It's hysterical. The things that they have, like challenges that they could go and do. And the activities get anywhere from very simple, like low entry, right? You walk in, you already know what's going on in the room, bloxels or things, anywhere to like a very complicated coding or a game that they'd have to join in, and group role playing and things like that. So
I love that. Wow. Okay. So they have checked out some different stuff. They have made some choices about what they think they want to share or how they're going to share. And then where do they go from there?
So then we get parent permission to make sure that they can come that evening. Mm-hmm. It is an evening event. It's usually 5 to 7. We make sure that all the schools and all the students, K-12, are getting the same communication, and all of the librarians, there are 8 of us on the team, 4 librarians and 4 technology people, kind of coordinate their own schools. We have classrooms. We do a building reserve. We use classrooms around the library, and we bring the kids in at 4 o'clock so that they can have an hour to get into their classrooms and set up their classroom. They can load their presentations on a computer. They can get technology. They can move desks around. And then at 5 o'clock, we open up to the general public. And we will have a map. I've shared a map with you of our school with the interactive links to either download apps or get to websites. Ideally, pre-COVID, they were bringing their own devices, their own portable devices. We are not a one-to-one district in Colchester, and even after COVID, we did not go back to one-to-one. We do have, I know, believe it or not, isn't that crazy? But we just found we are one-to-one middle school and high school, but at the elementary and intermediate schools, we have carts that we share. We're 2-to-1, but the kids are not taking technology home. We just like them unplugged a little bit, that well balanced. So we leave it in the rooms, and then they can come in and enjoy the activities that night. We do ask PTO. Each of the schools' PTO donates a few $100s. And at our highest, just before COVID, we had about 750 people show up for pizza. Yeah, it's an amazing night. It's just amazing. Lots of work. We're there from very early in the morning till very late at night, exhausted. And I think I got 28,000 steps that last day.
I can believe it. I mean, I can just imagine having to go and check on everybody. And
Yeah. And we need lots of adult volunteers because kids are in rooms. We never leave students alone in classrooms. So we have a lot of parent volunteers. That's where the high school comes in, like National Honor Society. Some of their groups will have older students volunteer to just kind of monitor for traffic, just in case anybody comes in and, we want to protect equipment. We want to protect the younger kids. Usually the K2 teachers will come in with their students and stay. And then you'll see that kind of involvement wane a little bit as the kids get older. The teachers are like, the kids got it. They'll come in and set them up, but the kids have it.
Yeah. I mean, once the kids can show, here's, what I've got down, because they've got it down to a science, I'm sure.
They really do.
So you are sort of looking at particular pieces of technology that you're kind of pointing the kids toward, and then you also leave it open for them to be able to kind of just pick and choose some stuff too and kind of come to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, so there were a couple of kids using Code Combat, which is like a Zelda-like video game where they're coding, and they got involved. Their parents found it, or they knew someone from another school that was using it, and they were like, "Hey, there's this really cool game that we want to play. We want to show you." They can choose one of 6 different languages. They can code in anything from block coding to JavaScript, Python. It's pretty amazing what this game can do. And they're playing Zelda. They're, finding gems and rescuing. So I was like, hey, if you put together something, I'll take a proposal. I'll make sure we have, because in Connecticut, we have to have privacy agreements signed and things like that. I take care of the paperwork. They take care of teaching me, and if they can teach me, I'll put them on the map and get them going. Sure.
I love it. So now, is there a possibility that a kid might bring you a piece of, point you towards something that you weren't aware of before that you might then end up incorporating into lessons or as part of future DLDs?
Absolutely. So one of our older students brought me iNaturalist, which I wasn't familiar with.
No.
So that's something where it's sort of like Leaf Snap, where you can actually go on a nature hike or nature walk. You could use it at school with kids, or for your personal benefit on vacation. You take a picture and it will then, you can take a picture of leaves, flowers, animals. It will tell you what that is, and then it will put it on a map, and you can report a sighting. So if it's something unusual that you hadn't seen in your area, you could then be recorded. So insects, it's a really great, if you haven't seen it, try out iNaturalist. We actually set up a small nature walk that we put through like a back garden that we didn't know what we were going to do. We put some QR codes out there with about the information of plants that we had planted, but then we loaded Leaf Snap and iNaturalist onto the iPads and let kids just go out there and take pictures of stuff. And they've been taking it, on their vacations or on their summers, and they can report into me with nature that they went out and just, get them outside, get them looking, but they're still using technology.
That's awesome. And I can imagine, too, that the science teachers must love that.
There's many things. There's a website, Gizmos, I think it's called, which are interactives for science. K-12, you can pick an experiment. Kids can do online experiments. So somebody brought that into me from outside, the nature. There's just been a lot of great apps that we've shared out, but also that we've taken and kind of incorporated into different areas in the curriculum.
I love that, getting that give and take with the students and making sure that they're seeing like, hey, yeah, what you are bringing us is valuable. Like we definitely understand why you would want us to see this. That's great.
Yeah, so we also have brought, games. The Rubik's Cube came about not because of a digital learning day, but the kids were getting involved in Rubik's Cubes, and sometimes they propose things that are not exactly fit for education, but if I can learn to harness their superpowers, right, and then either somehow tweak it a little bit to be used in a math class. So I convinced, when they're doing Rubik's Cubes, you've never heard the word algorithm more than when a kid is learning how to solve a Rubik's Cube. And so, they use that in math class as like a warm-up activity, as long as they were using math vocabulary. And so, we can kind of twist these things. And so now we've hooked a kid that would want to be video gaming, but, we've made it as a warm-up activity, or they can write about it. We use Bloxels, which is creating your own video game through a little minute, they look like unit cubes. But we had a class of really reluctant writers, and they were working on their narrative piece, and it was a really tough unit for the classroom teacher. And she said, geez, do you have anything that we could use as like a motivation? And I said, let's build a video game, except every chapter that you write in your story becomes a level of your video game. So the more chapters you have in your video game, the more levels we would write. And so the more chapters, they kept coming, and more characters and more details, so they could have these amazing video games to present. And so that was something that I was having trouble. I knew I wanted to use it for education, but I was having trouble. But we had a share night, and they were able to share their story and then pair it with their video game so that parents and families could see right alongside how we made that work.
Very clever. I love it. Now, how long again have you been doing the Digital Learning Day?
So our first year was 2017. I believe way back then it was still in January. They've moved Digital Learning Day a couple of different times. So we would have planned that starting in December of 2016. So we had the 17, 18, 19. We did have Digital Learning Day 2020. That was approximately 2 weeks before, everything. And then we did online. We did a completely virtual 2021 and 2022. And then 2023, we've already gotten the okay. We're bringing it back in person. We're going to try and keep it a little tighter as far as geography in my school. Instead of using classrooms, we're kind of envisioning like a craft fair setup where you could have just walk from table to table with devices, just to keep traffic moving, and have to have less adult volunteers. But we're going 2/23/23.
Wow.
Is our date for this year.
Nice. For what it's worth, we used to do an 8th grade fair where we would have the 8th graders all did projects, and we would get all of them in the gym, and they'd all get a half of a table and a stand that they could share their stuff. And that way we were able to kind of keep people moving around, and we had everybody in kind of contained. So I don't know if that's going to quite fit with where you're going, but
yeah, I think that's sort of, we have our gym and our cafeteria are like across a hall from each other. So I think we're going to utilize those two spaces because the high school robotics team has already reached out to say, hey, we want half the gym. We're going to throw t-shirts this year. And I'm like, okay, we'll make it work. We'll figure it out.
So definitely you've been learning things from past experiences. Clearly there are ideas that have sort of evolved as they've gone along here. Is there any particular thing that you're like, yeah, when we started we were doing this and we have learned, no.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things. So the earlier we can get information out to families, the better. And the first year we brought everyone into the library at 4:00 to have like a kickoff meeting. I envisioned like getting everybody excited, and we had so many student presenters. They were like out the doors, and I'm like, So second year, we did a video for everyone to watch at home with their parents the night before, kind of touring the school for those kids who had forgotten or hadn't been to our school yet. That video that we send home is a really great thing for parents because there's like the student presenter there's dropping off, and then we ask the parents to go wait for their, while the kids get set up. They go wait. We've actually now asked those parents to stay with their kids because there may have been an incident where we had to dump the whole building. We might have had to exit the building when a fire alarm might have accidentally been pulled about 20 minutes to go. These are all learning. We didn't have the resource officer on site, so now we have the resource officer there. We always have an administrator there. I mean, truly, these are, learning experiences. You don't know what you don't know, and
Right.
We were ambitious, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger, which is fantastic. And always ask the PTO for a little bit extra money because the price of pizza always goes up. You always need a little
have too
extra
much pizza.
You
That's
cannot. And people get really mad when you run out. Do not run out of pizza. Yeah.
One of the things I love about this lesson too is that it is already kind of baked in. It has supports for all different kinds of students. I mean, it's literally because they're choosing. They get to kind of find the thing that works for them. They get to find the way that presenting that works for them. Are there any other particular kind of supports that you find that you bring in, or are there any things that, I don't know if like for ESL students or if that's something that has come up?
So we are using Google Translate usually as one of the presentations, and to have one of our students who utilizes that tool present that tool. I have a student using an iPad as a talker, and we're crossing our fingers that she's going to be showing people how she uses her talker, just because I think it builds that community and empathy and kind of an understanding of how kids are using these tools, but they're just kids, right? They're just kids learning alongside everybody else's kids, even though they might need an extra device or an extra minute to translate something. And so to use those kind of devices to be able to translate things in and out of whatever language you might know or experience. We've had American Sign Language, ASL workshops and videos where people have sat down and just learned American Sign Language. And so to be able to teach people where to find these tools so they could use them, whether moms and dads are using them in their own, in a profession or for their own personal gain, or, grandma's using it to communicate with someone, one of her friends who speaks another language. Those are really great learning opportunities where kids can just show others how they can communicate and learn better and how they're learning, so that we can all kind of understand that. And I think a great lesson is kind of scaffolded for all learners. And so this provides the community an opportunity to see how schools can scaffold lessons, create interactive classrooms so that absolutely anybody can feel included and welcomed and able to succeed in today's classroom.
Well, on that note, I want to ask about feedback. What have you heard from students, from teachers, from the community? I have to imagine that because this has been an ongoing project, clearly it's working, but what have you been hearing about it?
Yeah, so this is one of those, they call them like cornerstone projects, my assistant superintendent. It's one of the things that kids come back and they're like, Mrs. Johnson, remember that time we used a globe and we tried to make that robot from Star Wars? And I'm like, I remember that. That was a digital learning night where we used a robot car and we put it inside a globe and you drove it around like BB-8. And they're like, yes. So it's one of those events where kids remember that opportunity that they were the teacher. They remember that opportunity where they were able to show their family or their friends' families that night that the superintendent came around and shook their hand, and thanks for being part of the staff. He, referred to them as part of the staff. Families really look forward to this. We increase by about 30% every year. So we went from 200 people our first year. The next year we jumped to 400 to 600. Then we're just really, our numbers are increasing. We were very disappointed, unable to have in-person events, but we did track a lot of hits to the website when we were utilizing our interactive menus during the COVID. And then, in 2 weeks, we're going to find out because we're going to send in the RSVPs. Parents like it. Parents are disappointed when they can't come. And we've heard that they want more. So we're trying to give them more.
That's awesome. So what advice do you have for someone who is thinking they want to try this out? Because I'll tell you, it's blowing my mind, and I am so excited by all the possibilities of this. So what do you have to say to those folks who are getting ready to try this out?
Yeah, so absolutely start small, right? So like think about, just start it with your kids. Maybe just start a virtual one, right? Start letting them play, get them a menu, play, and then create a video to teach someone else. If you want to take it that next step, maybe see if, they want to put together, a small group or a club and maybe teach something at a staff meeting, right? And have them kind of come in at one staff meeting. There's all the adults there. The parents would love it. Present at a board meeting. What a great way to advocate for your program. Go to your school board meeting and have the kids show the school board how to do something. We utilize these events during like summer reading at the public library. Host a very small event, collaborate with your public library. If you don't want to open up your space or worry about, the public library would love to have families come in and cute little kids teaching stuff. And by the way, go check out some books, right? like. So
absolutely.
that would be a perfect collaboration with your public library, and just kind of get your feet underneath you that way. The kids will not disappoint you. Don't be afraid if you are a teacher of the littles. You can do this. They're more popular. They draw a bigger crowd than the big kids, I promise. They come out and every moment, every word that they speak is going to be recorded and on their family videos forever. And then, maybe the next step would be combine two schools. If you're the elementary school, maybe work with the middle school, or invite your middle school to come in and teach you some things, and grab some groups of kids to go teach the middle schoolers. Work your way up to this event. This did not happen overnight. This is, 10 years of me working in a library and 8 years of my team working on my crazy idea and misunderstanding of how this all started. So, definitely start small and start within your comfort level and reach out. I'd be happy to give you any advice you want.
Well, speaking of which, how can people get in touch with you? Where are they going to find you? Are they going to find you on the socials? How do they find you?
Absolutely. So I'm a Twitteraholic. I'm an oversharer of school stuff. So I'm Techno Johnson, TECHNO Johnson on Twitter. I'm techno.johnson on Instagram. And I have a personal hashtag try this on Monday for my personal archive service. All the digital tools, everything I wish I could do on a Monday morning, but never have time for. It became this PD movement in Connecticut. So our Connecticut librarians have been doing some online PDs and then shooting them out to the hashtag try this on Monday. So if you get bored with anything, search try this on Monday and you'll find some fun stuff out there. And then you can always email me at school, bajohnson@colchesterct.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this. It is just blowing my mind wide open with all the possibilities. And I know it's going to take a while, but I can definitely see myself working toward this project in the future. This is great.
Absolutely. And I'd love to get, our kids can share with your kids and share their experiences. I definitely have some kids who could share some advice to other presenters. And I'd love to hear about your celebrations.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the SLLN podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes for the episode. They feature links to the resources shared by our guest, as well as ways to keep in touch with them, and links to the book break recommendations. And stop by the SLLN website, home to a curated list of free upcoming virtual events and resources for school librarians. It's easy to become a member of the School Librarian Learning Network. Just visit the site and use what you like. If you have a comment, an idea, a question, or something you want to share, you can email schoolliblearning@gmail.com. That's schoolliblearning@gmail.com. Know a school librarian with something others could learn from? Let us know. Until next time, be good, be safe, and be well.